Welcome to a brand new review on Perennial Stories, the channel for the best stories, the darkest tales, and unforgettable nights. Tonight, we dive into a chilling classic from the shadows of nostalgia. Are you afraid of the dark? This is The Tale of the Night Shift, a story that proves some jobs should never be taken, no matter how much they pay. The episode begins like any other, with the Midnight Society gathered around the campfire, sharing their usual stories beneath the stars. But this tale quickly leads us somewhere far less comforting: a hospital. Here we meet Felix, a quiet maintenance worker, doing his best to get through another long night shift. But instead of help, he gets blame. His manager, Jack, accuses him of losing a vital water pump, despite having no proof at all. And here's a fun piece of trivia for longtime fans. Jack repeatedly calls Felix Zebo instead of Bozo. This is a subtle nod to the infamous clown from The Tale of Laughing in the Dark, another unforgettable episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? After that, we're introduced to our main character, Amanda, a volunteer nurse who lives in constant motion. She's a true workaholic, juggling school, responsibilities, and everything else at once, leaving no time for much of anything beyond her duties. The night shift is the only moment she has to volunteer at the hospital, making these late hours both exhausting and necessary. Amanda soon meets another volunteer named Margot. Their interaction is brief, almost forgettable at first, before Amanda is quickly called away by another nurse. But the camera doesn't leave Margot. Instead, it slowly moves closer, lingering on her far longer than expected, before the scene dissolves into a clear danger sign. On a second viewing, this moment stands out as an early clue. Something about Margot isn't quite right. The lingering shot isn't accidental, and the sign isn't just set dressing. It's a warning. Subtle foreshadowing, quietly planted, waiting to be noticed. Meanwhile, Felix searches the storage area, desperately looking for the missing water pump, when he's suddenly distracted by a mysterious girl. Without thinking twice, Felix follows her deeper into the corner of the attic. At this point, you almost want to shout at the screen, "Did your parents never tell you not to follow a stranger into an attic?" Bro has absolutely no chance of survival. And then, no exaggeration, we are thrown into a full-on nightmare. In one of the most disturbing moments in all of children's television, Felix is suddenly attacked by a monstrous creature. We don't yet know what this green monstrosity is with its glowing red eyes, but the episode is already planting clues. One of the first appears in the form of a wooden sign. When Felix picks it up, he casually remarks, "It's from the crate that it came in." A small line, but one that will matter a lot more as the story continues. We continue the story by following Amanda, who is now being harassed by Colin, a classmate with a very obvious crush on her. Amanda politely turns him down, explaining that she's simply too busy. But Colin doesn't take the hint, and he keeps pushing. Meanwhile, we shift back to the hospital floor, where the lead nurse notices that same mysterious girl running through the halls. Curiosity gets the better of her, and she follows the girl into a closed-off area. And once again, we're hit with another nightmare. The creature attacks. The scene cuts away before we can fully process what just happened. And I'll be real with you, this monster is genuinely creepy. If I had seen this episode as a kid, I would have been traumatized for life. Back with Amanda and Colin, he's still insisting that she should go out with him. Amanda continues to reject him, but Colin stubbornly claims he won't give up. "Keep trying, bro." That's when we meet a young patient with a broken leg, being wheeled through the hospital in a wheelchair by our mysterious character, Margot. The boy turns out to be Colin's hospital roommate, and for some reason, he wants to visit the morgue. Soon after, the lead nurse returns. Her hair is disheveled, her expression empty, and her movements slow. It's clear she's in some kind of trance, like she's no longer really there. We keep cutting back to a slow walking shot through the hospital, leading toward a cleaning area. We then realize it's Colin, and he manages to convince Amanda to investigate the hospital with him. He claims that his roommate is missing, even though he only has a broken leg, which doesn't quite add up. They make their way through the hospital corridors, trying to stay unnoticed. At one point, they're forced to hide from a nurse. Amanda doesn't want to be caught, since she isn't technically working and could get into trouble. In a supply closet, they discover that all of the reserve blood has been drained. This becomes another important clue about the creature. They decide to report what they found and approach the nurse they were hiding from earlier. It quickly becomes clear that she's under the same influence as the shift leader nurse. Amanda urges her to call security, but the nurse ignores her. We also notice 2 bite marks on her neck, making the reveal clear. The creature is a vampire. Realizing they can't rely on the staff, Amanda and Colin decide to investigate further on their own. Their search leads them to the morgue, where they find Felix from earlier in the episode. His body appears lifeless, with 2 bite marks on his neck. As they leave, we learn the truth. Felix is still alive. The scene was staged to make them believe he was dead. The duo makes their way to the front office, where they're quickly confronted by the manager, Jack, the same man from the beginning of the episode who was yelling at Felix about the missing water pump. He immediately feels familiar. For viewers of The Boys, he's recognizable as Tech Knight's butler in that infamous Season 4 episode where Huey goes undercover. I'll leave it at that. Jack begins questioning Amanda and Colin, but it doesn't take long for them to realize something is wrong. He too is under the vampire's control. Realizing they're in danger, Amanda and Colin attempt to escape. At the emergency exit, Felix is waiting for them. Felix attacks, and Colin is forced to fight back. During the struggle, Felix briefly breaks free from the control and reveals the horrifying truth. Everyone in the hospital has been taken over by the vampire. The duo asks Felix for help. Felix leads them down into the basement, the place where he was bitten. There, he explains that the vampire arrived at the hospital inside a crate, a clear reference to the classic horror monster Nosferatu, who was also transported this way. They soon discover the vampire's coffin. Felix explains that to destroy the vampire, they must destroy the coffin. That's when Margot appears and calls out to Amanda, confronting them. She insists Felix is wrong and claims that the hospital is the perfect place for a vampire, given the endless supply of blood. She seems to know a little too much about vampire lore. In an obvious twist, we finally learn the truth. The vampire creature is actually Margot. The transformation effect is surprisingly well done, especially for a children's show. The makeup, the movement, the overall design all work together to create a genuinely creepy moment. And we can hear Margot speaking before the transformation is complete, which makes Felix's sudden shift feel a bit rushed. Maybe that's why Felix is able to resist the mind control, or maybe he's just stronger than the others. The vampire immediately goes after Felix, determined to finish what it started. Amanda and Colin run, and they quickly come up with a plan. Amanda will distract the vampire while Colin destroys the coffin. A chase begins. The vampire pursues Amanda through the hospital, while Colin heads toward the attic where the coffin is hidden and where Felix is waiting. Felix now has fully glowing red eyes, showing he's become a full minion of the vampire. He overpowers Colin easily. But Colin doesn't give up. He tries to reach Felix, speaking to him, and slowly, Felix fights the control. Meanwhile, on the top floor, the vampire captures Amanda. For a moment, it seems like the vampire plans to throw her from the top floor to the ground, and then drink what's left. That's an incredibly dark concept for a kids' show, and the episode wisely doesn't go that far. Instead, the vampire chooses to bite her. Colin and Felix then throw the vampire's coffin into the furnace, the source of its power. The coffin burns, and the vampire erupts in flames. It crashes to the floor, defeated. The hospital is finally safe again, and the nightmare comes to an end. Back in the hospital, everything appears to have returned to normal. No one remembers what happened, except for Felix. In the final moments, Amanda and Colin share a brief exchange about a potential second date, giving the romantic subplot a quiet sense of closure. But the episode ends with one last detail. As the door shuts behind them, the number 65 is revealed. It's a subtle but clever reference to the 65th episode in the series, signaling that the tale of the night shift serves as the grand finale of Season 5. A fitting ending, leaving viewers with a final hint and a lingering sense of mystery. Overall, The Tale of the Night Shift is a fantastic episode that blends horror, suspense, and even a touch of romance. While Amanda isn't the most compelling character, she does have a solid character arc. She starts out as a workaholic who barely has time for anything beyond school and responsibilities. But through the episode, she learns to balance her life a little more, and she finally gives Colin a chance. This makes the episode feel like more than just a typical horror story. It becomes a romantic duo episode with a terrifying vampire twist. Speaking of the vampire, it's absolutely horrifying. The glowing red eyes, sharp teeth, and unsettling makeup effects are genuinely scary, even for an adult viewer. The atmosphere is eerie, and several scenes are downright nightmare-inducing. For a kids' show, it really pushes the boundaries of fear while still delivering a well-paced and engaging story. With great practical effects, strong performances, and a memorable antagonist, this episode stands out as one of the creepiest in Are You Afraid of the Dark? It also serves as a perfect way to close out Season 5, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it left some childhood scars. What did you think of this episode? Let me know in the comments.